Hey, Nicholas with the Backyard TARDIS here with some more adventures in locksmithing. Uh, this one I had today, a longtime customer called me up and were like, hey, I had this other locksmith out. He screwed up the lock. I don't know if it's fixable. He broke a screw off and he led me for weeks saying he was going to look up a part. And then he finally told me, hey, I'm not going to do it. Uh, Tough. Now, the locksmith he's talking about is a locksmith I recommend. And it's interesting. I try to take everything with a grain of salt because this was a regular customer of mine for years, and here he was using another locksmith, and apparently had been for a while. Um, Simply because I didn't have a shop anymore, I think was the reason. But um, what it kind of talking to him kind of boiled down to was one time he needed me, I wasn't available, and so he switched. Customers can be very fickle like that. They can have one bad experience, one negative thing, and they're like, well, I'm never calling that person again. Um, so when I have someone very negative, very upset about one of my competitors who I recommend, I take that with a grain of salt. Now, I do want to do a whole series on fake locksmiths because I have some in my area who are either quote unquote scams or there's a problem with the locksmith community is that to officially become a locksmith, a licensed locksmith, there's very little bar of entry. And, but it's kind of like, well, even like in construction, like you have journeyman, you have this, but you have contractor, subcontractor, general contractor. Those are licenses. Um, I feel like locksmith is one of those things where you can pay to enter a karate class and then come out and say, oh, yes, I am a karate professional. That's what it feels like with it. Like, you don't have any belts, you don't have any, like, there are no levels. Um, and of course, we have certain things where you can or can't do that we judge each other by. But for the public, the moment you get a license and you slap an ad in the phone book or whatever, or online, on Yelp, whatever it is, you're a locksmith as much as anybody else. And it's a deceptive word. Now, the key peddler, as I did in my number 50 of Adventures of Locksmithing, it started by a 12-year-old on a bicycle. I'm not trying to knock people that do that. Everybody has to start there somewhere. However, when the key peddler started, he just was doing key copies, and then he started rekeying houses, and then going from there. But what a lot of these new ones do is they do like full service websites that say they do all the stuff that they don't do. But they just want to look like they're professional, like they do these other things. And when they get those calls, they turn them away. But they want to say that they do so that anybody who needs this little thing that they do looks at them and go, oh, wow, they're a big professional company. I'm going to call them. When really they're a guy who's been at it for 6 months and doesn't know what he's doing. And can't do any of that stuff that they talk about on their website. So this is not that kind of case. This is somebody who I respect, who has been a locksmith longer than me, and is one of the main people I recommend when I'm busy. But we've all been there, and when I talk about these fake locksmiths and kind of some of their screw-ups, I'm going to do a video about one of the ones I screwed up, because you make mistakes, and sometimes you make a mistake, and you get inside your head, and you're like, it just becomes dread, overwhelming you. I don't know how I'm going to fix this. And at some point, it is easier to pass the buck to another locksmith who comes in with none of the blame and can fix it. Now, when you do that, of course, you mar, in that person's eyes, your company name, and to anybody they talk to, they're going to talk negative. So you don't want to do that. But there are some times when your emotions are just your anxiety is too much. And I had one of those where I did come up with a solution. I laid it out to them, and they were like, oh no, my door guy said, do not let you touch that door again. I said, okay. I suggested a competitor who specifically dealt in commercial. They did a lot of install work. They've unfortunately gone out of business now, but I said, here they are, and I called them up and I said, hey, this is the plan I came up with. Here's what I was going to do, but they're so mad at me at this point, they don't want to deal with it. Like I said, that'll be a future video. But so what did I do on this? So he's got a 2.5-inch thick door. So, normally you've got a 1 3/4 door. Sometimes you get a 2-inch door. And most locks can go up to a 2-inch door. But the moment you get bigger than that, you start having to buy extension kits so that the tailpiece and the screws are longer and can work with that door. It was also a mortise lock. So all the stuff on this door is unique. And it just is not, it's not ideal. It's not ideal. And see, with a mortise lock, you have a set screw that comes in. Well, on a mortise lock on a wood door, like on a glass storefront door, it's a little short Allen screw. You can go pick them up. They break out. Sometimes it happens. I've punched them out. I've done different things. I can replace it. But this is a unique older mortise to a whole fancy handle set with a thumb press, all that. Replacing this is not really an option. And the locksmith had just suggested, you should just get a whole new door. Well, that's really expensive. So I drilled the screw out. And you had to be careful because there's only about, I'd say about that much meat. Like the screw may be that long, but it actually only passes through a spot about that long that actually has threading. And the rest is just open air. And so I had to make sure as I was drilling that out, not to like ream it all the way through out the side so that it would just break the hole. And then I had to drill and tap for a slightly bigger screw very carefully and do a new screw. And then the screw I found to that, it's got to go into a little groove with a pointed tip. So I had to Dremel a pointed tip onto the end of a screw, and I had to cut the screw to the right length so that it wouldn't be jutting out the door on the side, but hit the lock and have the sloped. And I customed all of this. Got it all together, and then it was working rough. Turned out, piece inside wasn't aligned right. And they said, no, it was smooth before. So I have to come back. I was like, hey, I got another appointment, but I came back, took it all apart, put it back together piece by piece until I found when it started being rough. And I was like, okay, I got to drill out the hole. It's rubbing on this, get everything working, put it all together, and got it working. And my customer was thrilled. He's like, I don't know why I ever stopped using you. It was really convenient when you had your shop, but man, I don't ever want to go back. Like, I'm just going to use you, this, that. And that just, it makes you feel good. When you realize, would me 5 years ago, 10 years ago, like, would I have tackled that? No. I would have just stared at that and was like, that's the impossible thing. It's encased in a wood door. I'm looking through a teeny little hole to try to drill that out. Like, nah, this, if I screw it up, I've caused hundreds of dollars of damage. I would have been like, nope, not touching it. But me today, I will. And it just shows the level. And like I was saying earlier, locksmiths, we compare ourselves to each other based on certain things. Like automotive, there's what things can you do? Can you go up to a classic Ford and sit there with a file and a key and a vice grips and go out there and make a key? That is a specific skill. Can you do that to an old classic Chevy 6-pin sidebar? Then you're, hey, Hank Spicer, that's the only guy in the world I think that could do that. And he used that skill to sell VHS tapes for lots of money to tell you how he does it, which you can never duplicate. When you're in commercial locksmithing, it's, hanging the hardware, kind of some of the more like in the floor closers, stuff like that, certain things like that. Like if you can't adjust top and bottom rods, if you can't do little tricks to align the door as a locksmith, you have no business touching commercial door hardware. if you don't know these things. Um, when you are um, residential, even hardware, there's little things that show whether you really know what you're doing or you just kind of know what you're doing. And there's just different things. And then automotive, we're talking about the classics, but then the new stuff, like what can you program? Can you do, a 2021 Honda Prox? Can you do European cars? Can you do a Mercedes car? Like different, like there are different levels that we compare each other to, but I look at like some of the guys who are what I call fake locksmiths. They get key codes, they come out, they cut keys, all that. But what if the key lock is damaged? Can they do anything? No, they can't because they don't know how to repair it. So that's how we can. But this is kind of like a level above. You know, this is something that the normal locksmith employee sent out has to call back and have the boss come do. And I've been the owner for since 2016, and anytime I accomplish one of these jobs, I feel good. And what's nice is I've been on jobs where they've been a nightmare, where I banged my head against it for hours and then walked away, and I'm like, man, I hope I never have to go back there again. That it just works out for them and there's no warranty call on it. Um, and it's just frustrating because a job that you charged for an hour worth of labor, you were there for 3 hours because this one lock was messed up. But this was something where I knew in advance the lock was messed up. I came in totally calm, took care of it, and was like, yeah, I did that. I knew it was a problem, and I think some of that is too the attitude. I knew it was a problem ahead of time. And I knew the guy was already told that the door was locked. So if I'd messed up, uh, he'd be more happy that I tried than anything else. And we already had a backup plan. I was going to order the thicker door parts for a deadbolt and just put a separate deadbolt up above, and we were just going to make this a blank passage down below. But, successfully did it. And that just, for me, is a sign of progress. It's nothing clue that I've never had to feel as a lockpicker. I'm not some amazing guy that can pick everything effortlessly. That is something I've always struggled with, but I do all the time. It's part of my job. But to see me progress in this way, yeah, very, very happy, makes me very good. And so just wanted to share just another day in the life of a locksmith getting some progress.